I am so fascinated and excited to actually get to talk to you a little bit about your story. We don't have super long, but I have heard just amazing things about the work that you do. But I want to start with kind of how did you get here? And you can choose to say, like, what your family background is. You can share as much as you want, but what was sort of the beginning of what you feel like is your story? If you were to start introducing yourself to someone you've never met before, how would you start your story?
I would say I am a child of a Mexican woman who was not born in this country and an Anglo father, which means I'm a mixed race Latinx, and I have white passing privilege, and I move in the world with political power. But I very much identify with my Mexican family, all of whom live in one house in Little Rock, Arkansas. So this is a multi-generational thing, which is like very common for Latinx families. And how I got here really goes back to my Mexican mother enrolling me in Catholic school because she believed that the church was my salvation. And which is, I think, very common among folks who believe that the church is the place where we become our best selves.
Right.
And she has a 6th grade education. And so she knew that she didn't have the capacity to teach me or to provide access points for me. But she believed so deeply that if I had a faith that was inspired by education, that I would be on the way. And, in many respects, she was right? I went and earned 3 degrees in theology.
Right.
And here I am.
Yeah, so from a Catholic background, starting out, what are you denominationally now, or are you not?
So, categories are challenging for me, right? Because I'm a non-binary transgender person.
Yeah.
I'm a mixed race Latinx, so I evade categories in many respects.
Yep.
I'm a paradox. But yeah, I went to Catholic school growing up. I never made my first communion, and the reason why is because I had theological questions about the virgin birth, right? So awesome. I'm in 1st grade, and I'm asking the nuns questions about, like, well, what about this? What about that? And like, what the hell do I know? But I had a curious mind.
I love that.
And I was asking questions, and they were like, we don't think this is the right time for you.
I got kicked out of the Girl Scouts, same thing.
Yeah, so what's interesting is that the head principal went to my mother at her place of employment. My mom worked for Sears for 30 or 40 years. And the head nun went and said, we're very concerned for Robyn, who is not making their first communion. And my mother, it was the first time where I believe that I understood, years later when I had the language, but that was the moment where my feminism was birthed because my mother, right, so a Mexican woman who has a 6th grade education said, that's Robyn's decision.
Oh, I love it.
So it was the first time that I realized I had agency in this world.
I love
right?
that.
So yes, so I trained by Catholics and then decided, my mom always allowed me to have space to make my decisions. And so I said to her, I want to go to public school. Of course, private schools often are at a faster pace than public schools.
Yep.
So when I got to public school, I was really floundering and it wasn't the best place for me, obviously. And I am someone I'm a 5 on the Enneagram, and so I need lots of structure to go deep. And so I went to public school. That didn't work out. But during that time, I started going to a Southern Baptist church. Why? Because
you're a paradox.
Because I'm a paradox, and because it was a mile down from my house in Longview, Texas. I was born in East Texas, and I was like, well, let me just check this out. Lord, they had a school bus ministry, so I got on the bus and like rode the bus to church and was there like 3 or 4 times a week.
And they were like, we got a Catholic.
Yes. And so what was so fascinating about that is and I had a real come to Jesus, moment there. Felt such deep belonging with people. I would go to church by myself. It wasn't a thing that my mom did. And really sort of came into my awareness of, this is what it means to belong. Now, this was years before I came into my transness or my queerness. I knew that I was different, but I didn't have the language, right?
Right.
And so I traded the Catholics for the Baptists. And then when I moved to live with my white father in San Antonio, Texas, I traded all of that for the Lutherans.
Okay.
Because my dad liked to have a beer every once in a while. But what's interesting is when I was going through confirmation, I knew all the answers to the Bible questions. Why? Because like sword drill in Baptist churches
Yeah, you
are
were
like
ready.
a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to say that I am sort of mixed heritage when it comes to denominations.
Yep.
I've also been to 2 United Methodist seminaries, and I love John Wesley's thought.
Oh, now you're just talking to my world.
So I am moved by this mystery that people have been trying to figure out in many respects, right?
Right.
This story that people are like keep asking questions about. So I don't like to think about being rooted in a denomination, but I would rather be rooted in sort of this way of being compassionate, being justice oriented, and being loving. And that this way of justice, compassion, and love is actually creating a more loving world.
Absolutely. And I think your work has shown that curiosity and that inclusion of the little bits of everything.
Yeah.
And it makes you so relatable to so many people, which I think is how your story is. You are a paradox.
Yeah.
But you can talk to a Southern Baptist, you can talk to a Catholic, you can talk to us Methodists. I'm only Methodist by trade, but I grew up with a Catholic mom in the United Church of Canada. I've been through it all. Went to a Mennonite church because I read a lot of John Howard Yoder. But I feel like your story has kind of culminated in this work that you're doing. If there was like one thing that you wanted folks to know about you, what would it be? And what do you want to know about other people? So it's a 2-part question.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I want people to know about me is that we are all in this together. And I would say 98% of my audience is white. And I believe deeply in this critical moment where there is such racial disparity, such economic disparity, that if we don't learn to be human with one another, we will fail. This project in humanity will utterly fail if we don't learn how to be human with one another. And so I think that's the one thing I want people to know, is that I am deeply invested in becoming in restoring ourselves so that we can be human with one another.
Yes, absolutely.
That is about restoration, that is about renewal, and that is about reparations. And I think what I want to know about people would be, when are you ready to get on the bridge with me? Because it's the bridge work that will help us eradicate social isolation and build in deep belonging and connection. That is our work right now. That is our work.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you say the bridge, what does that invitation look like? It's a movement towards a more inclusive, more loving, what would you say the bridge is?
I think a bridge is a threshold of becoming. And it's a threshold that we enter, and we shouldn't enter into it lightly. We should enter into it with a deeply grounded presence. And we should invite others onto the bridge. This is not a one-way thing. So, like, I'm not the only one who holds the invitation or the deep posture of welcome. We all hold this invitation. And the bridge is not a two-way thing. And I think we need to expand our imagination of what bridging is. Bridging is this way to be entangled with one another. And if we don't live into the entangled mess that we are in, then we won't survive ourselves.
Yeah, I hear a lot of grace.
I think that we don't exist outside. Like, we can't exist outside of having a deeply fleshed orientation of grace.
Yeah. So, like, I'm going to invite you into my story, and I'm going to want to hear your story.
That's right.
And messiness is sometimes I'm going to offend, I'm going to get wrong. But if you stand off of the bridge and you stand away and you're afraid, you miss out on those encounters.
Yeah, and it's this moment of stepping into the vulnerability of the bridge, and with an understanding, like, you want to do it with open eyes, right? And you want to do it in a way that is mindful of all that can happen, right? Wild Goose is one of those places.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? It's an opportunity for bridge building and bridge making with across lines of deep difference. And I think that's the thing that we need to harness right now, is our deep commitment to build a community of radical difference so that we can have bridges of radical difference.
And it does mean a moment when you're going to have a Southern Baptist friend who is going to have a really tough time with your community or who you are. And I think it's this beautiful moment of even opening space to say, all right, let's talk about it. Who are you? Now, we only have a couple more minutes, so I really want to know, if you could look at the end of your story, what would you want people to say that the whole story was about? Like, what are you looking forward to?
I mean, I think, so I think about this a lot, actually, because I never wanted to have a public platform like that. I didn't go after a public platform. I went and did a PhD so I could sit in my office, write my
5.
Right. And
I want to know.
Yeah. And I'm an intense introvert, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to be in my office, write my books, teach a few classes, grade a few papers, but basically be left alone and like do shit on my own terms.
Yeah.
But that is not my call. And so I'm trying to be a really faithful steward of my public platform. And so I actually think about this a lot. Like, and I think about it in morbid terms, like, when I die, what will people say?
Yeah.
And what I want people to say about me, and that I hope that I'm living into, is that no matter what, Robyn was a thought leader that brought in heart leadership. And that at the end of the day, Robyn loved in revolutionary ways.
I love that. Well, I'm so glad that you shared a little bit of your story with me.
Thanks so much.
As someone who follows you on the platform stuff, it was really fun to get a chance to learn a little bit more about you and to hear your Southern accent. That's great.
Thank you. Yes.
What a gift. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness. Thanks, guys.